by our city recorder.
Mayor Roland Dykes.
Here.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Here.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Here.
Alderman Bobby Knight.
Here.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Here.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Here.
City Attorney Terry Hurst.
Here.
City Administrator James Fincham.
Here. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. It's been included in your package. If you've had time to peruse those, we'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it. We have a motion on the board to approve the minutes as presented. It's been properly seconded. Are there any questions to the motion? Hearing none, please signify your acceptance by the normal sign of aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. The item 4 is proclamations and recognitions of citizens by the mayor. Mr. Gary Carver has a proclamation.
Mayor Dykes, you being a man of many meetings and little free time, know what it's like to constantly be the person that is to present proclamations for people to other people. Since there aren't any other elected officials here outside of the board itself, I guess this responsibility falls on me as county commissioner to present this proclamation given to you by Senator Sutherland and Yeager and Representative Faison and Hawk. Excellent company to be in. They're not here, unfortunately, but this in general appears to be a resolution that just honors you for being the hardworking man that you are, and I am honored to give it to you. Are we doing the thing where I need to read it, or would you like to summarize it?
That's up to you.
Okay, but this kind of breaks down Trey's life and his volunteerism and his work and his career up until this point, his family, and I mean, it's hard to sum up something that a man as accomplished as him is done in just, that much paper, but they've done a pretty decent job of it. So he's been given this, and so I would like to present this to our mayor on this evening of December 14th, 2021 for his service. I'm sure that the duly elected state senators and representatives would be just as honored as I am if they were here this evening.
Thank you.
Regina, do we need a picture?
Yeah.
All right. I didn't write that. I just kind of did that off the cuff. That's okay, right?
You did a good job.
Thanks.
Thank you. Now that we got that out of the way, item 5 is communications from our city administrator, Mr. James Fincham.
Thank you, Mayor. Fortunately, this month I don't have, unlike some of the previous months, I don't have a whole lot to go over. The COVID update, that we are seeing a surge again in numbers in the community. Fortunately, we have not had a surge in employees. Right now, we don't have anyone out on any COVID-related issues, and knock on wood, we hope that continues. And speaking of recognition, one thing that we just had, of course, was the Christmas parade. And every year, the city has done our best to support and participate in the parades many years past. And this year, thanks to the generosity of the council through the budget process, we were able to replace our old and decrepit trailer that we used to create a float each year for our elected officials to come through town and greet the public and be a part of the parade. And so that thing had seen its better days, and so we were able to replace that this year with a new trailer. And so I know you all, some of y'all got to ride on it in the parade Sunday, some of you didn't make it, but if you haven't seen, it's sitting in the back inside the bays if you want to go back after the meeting and look at it. But you may have seen seen it online or something during the parade, but I think it was something that we could really be proud of as far as the presentation of it and representing the city government. I think it was something to be really proud of. And what I want to do right now is to recognize the two, there were a lot of people involved, but the two movers and shakers that really made it happen as far as all the work that went into our float. And that is our maintenance guy, Danny Buckner. Danny, if you would come up, and Sarah Johnson, our receptionist clerk. And Danny did the hard manual labor that turned it into from a plain trailer to the artwork that it became. And Sarah's craftiness, I would put up against anybody as far as taking an idea and making something out of it and make it look really good. Now, don't be shy. Come on over here. If I was going to bite you, I'd have bit you all the time.
Yeah, it would have been hard.
But I just want to give each of you a little token of appreciation because of the job you did, the dedication that you had and put into it, and the time and effort. I mean, you took it seriously. You made something beautiful out of it. And I couldn't be any prouder of it myself. And so I thank you, and on behalf of the city, I want to recognize you for your work and your effort.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
It was really nice, thank you.
I've had tons of positive comments about it from folks that saw it. I've had positive feedback from y'all that wrote on it. And so I'm absolutely proud of it, and I know you all are too. And if you haven't seen it, you need to go back and look at it. Of course, some of the stuff, the buyers out in the lobby now, it swung at me as I went by. I didn't know it moved, and I thought it was taking a swipe at me. But it's not all back. But it's mostly still on it back there. The only other thing I have is, of course, the holidays are coming up. City Hall will be closed 2 days next week, and in 2 days the next week. And so what is it, the 4th, we'll be back after the first of the year and back at full speed again. But we will be closed for 4 or 5 days out of the next 2 weeks, starting next week. And I hope everybody has a very Merry Christmas and a great New Year. And I appreciate all your efforts and wish all y'all the best. And that's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you, James. Item 7 is reports from committees, members of council, and other officers. Tanner Preservation Alliance.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Any alderman or alderwoman have anything?
Mr. Mayor, I'll take 1 minute just to thank Mr. Fincham and my old cousin Lucas Graham. Thursday, we made a decision collectively to not have the Christmas parade on Saturday. Excellent move, great decision. All I had input into it is tell them, yeah, we'll move our people around. But just, you know, we still were able Sunday to have a fantastic parade and be able to celebrate, and the holidays coming up. But I just wanted to ask everybody to please remember the folks in Kentucky, especially Mayfield, Kentucky, is basically destroyed, but we still had the opportunity to celebrate this wondrous holiday, and just ask everybody to please remember those folks.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Item 8, old business or unfinished business. Item A is consideration of the second reading of ordinance number 2021-09, adopting an unclaimed property policy.
And Mayor, I'll read the text of that ordinance into the record. It's ordinance number 2021-09, an ordinance to amend the City of Newport Municipal Code, Title 5, Municipal Finance and Taxation, adding Chapter 4, adopting an unclaimed property policy. We need a motion, and a second, and a roll call.
Motion to approve ordinance 2021-09 is written.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the board. It's been properly seconded. We will need a roll call.
Alderman Mike Hansel,
Yes.
Alderman Bobby Knight,
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger,
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item B is consideration of second reading of ordinance number 2021-10, budget amendment for the city of Newport.
And that's ordinance number 2021-10, an ordinance of amending the annual operating budget and capital program of the city of Newport, Tennessee, fiscal year 2021-2022.
For the presentation, what is the board's pleasure?
I make a motion to accept that ordinance 2021-10.
Second.
We have a motion then on the board to approve the ordinance. It's been properly seconded. We need a roll call, please.
Alderman Mike Hansel,
Yes.
Alderman Bobby Knight,
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger,
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item C is consideration of second reading of ordinance number 2021-11, budget amendment for Newport Grammar School.
And that's ordinance 2021-11, an ordinance of amending the annual operating budget and capital program of the city of Newport, Tennessee, fiscal year 2021-2022 for Newport Grammar School.
What is the board's pleasure?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, do we have a motion then to approve ordinance number 2021-11, budget amendment for Newport Grammar School? It has been properly seconded. Please signify your acceptance. I'm sorry, need a roll call.
Alderman Mike Hansel,
Yes.
Alderman Bobby Knight,
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger,
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Number 9, new business. Item A is consideration of charter change.
And Mayor, this is a change to the fire civil service that Chief Shelton has worked on very hard, and we have prepared a resolution for the board's consideration with the help of MTAS and particularly Pat Hardy, who actually bragged on the effort that had gone into this. Told me it was one of the best charter changes as far as the fire civil service that he had seen in several years. To get this approved, of course, it requires a 4-vote majority, and then it's sent to the state legislature where they have to pass it. The governor has to sign it. Then it has to come back to us, and again, it has to be approved by a 4-vote majority.
Supermajority, yes. Yes, sir.
Supermajority, which is 4 votes.
And also, not to leave anyone out, Missy Masoner was very
Absolutely, I talked
was very instrumental. They collaborated together on putting that together, and so they
Jeremy bragged on Missy to me.
Yeah.
Every time. Sorry.
You did say there were some misspelled words, a couple of grammar errors.
But yes, these are things that, some of which the council had requested during the past year, that had talked about that the council wished to change, and other things are just, are some changes that bring the fire civil service and the police civil service more in line with each other. The police civil service was changed many years ago, probably close to 20 years now. It was in the early 2000s. And it was stated at the time that they would come back the following year and make changes to the fire civil service, and that was never done until now. And so that is being proposed now, to bring those more in line, not identical, but more in line with each other and in line with the things that you all had wanted changed.
Yeah, pretty much we took it from the King James Version to the New King James Version. So it was a little complicated. We had to work through and do some stuff, but it was about bringing before the council. Everything's still the same. We still go to civil service. It's just some of the stuff with council, they can have a designee and appointing and some of those things. And then term limits, we try to clear that up and other positions that's in it. So, but yeah, Missy worked pretty hard on this too. So
You said term limits for the civil service board?
Well, we clarified it that there was no term limits for it. It wasn't clear in the form, in the paper. So Willie Green has been on there, and he's hired everyone at the fire department that's there now, and a few people back. So I'd sat in on a council, on on a county meeting, a safety meeting, and they brought up, well, it was kind of a gray area, and it was written kind of similar to the way ours were, that every 3 years it wasn't clear if you had to replace them or not. So I basically put in there that this does not limit the term. You know, as long as they're reappointed, they can stay in over and over. But you know, I appreciate you guys for going over this, and I believe I pretty much put in what we asked for on that.
All right.
Yeah, and we have been through it. I've sat down with each shift and went over it, and there's been no problems arise.
And the civil services, the Fire Civil Service Board they're good with it too.
Okay.
You did a good job on this, Jeremy. It looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Appreciate your hard work on it, and yours too.
We made sure that everybody involved was good with it, so there's nothing to blindside anybody, or that somebody's going to come up later and say, well, I didn't know that was the deal, I don't like that. Everybody should be well informed on what's in it, and everybody's good with it.
Okay.
And the way it's written, it's very clear.
I tried to give
questionable.
That's what we learned as we was going through this, having to go through it. So it's broke down in categories and sections, so you can kind of, you know where you're looking when you flip through it.
And that was one of the goals of the change, was to, just like he mentioned about the term limits, to take anything that was vague out and make it well defined, so that it's not up to the interpretation to where we can sit and argue back and forth about whose interpretation is right. So it's clear cut.
I guess in your presentation or consideration, was there any best practices done from other civil service organizations, or did you just basically go off what's done in the past?
We pretty much we put the police and the fire side by side, and then other questions that I've had or people have looked at that wasn't clear, that's kind of the way that went. And then with MTAS getting the view of it was where it would be held over with other
Yeah, MTAS does that. They look and see how it compares to others, because they have copies of everybody's, and so they will look to see how it stands up against others.
That's what I meant to say, was how MTAS was involved. So
yes, sir.
Good. Any other comments?
MTAS work real good with these organizations and city people, and we've been to a lot of their meetings and stuff, and they work real hard with us too.
Yeah, they're an integral part of the cities and counties for sure. They're a #1 resource to get our information.
And along those lines, I might as well announce it now since we talked about it, but Pat Hardy, who has been with us for such a long time, is retiring at the end of January, and they'll be replacing him. And I've been appointed to be on the committee to look for a replacement for Pat. So that's going to be a tough job. But anyway, you've heard the presentation. What is the board's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
All right. We do have a motion on the board then. It's been properly seconded. Please, we need a roll call. Tina, I'm sorry.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderman Bobby Knight.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will second the thought that they did a good job on it. They spent a lot of time working on it and were very diligent in putting that together. And I'm proud of the job they did.
So item B is consideration of the first reading of ordinance number 2021-12, zoning for property on West Highway 2570.
I feel like Regina and I are black belts in annexation at this point. This is just the next thing on the list that we're got to check off. This is the one piece of property is technically in the city, and this will zone it as a C3 commercial. This is the piece of property where the new package store is going in at, in case anyone's not been keeping up when I get up here every month and talk about the annexation process.
Mayor, that's ordinance 2021-12, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Newport to include 1026 West Highway 2570 in the C-2 zone.
Okay. Board's pleasure, please.
Make a motion to accept that 2021-12.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the board, excuse me, to approve the ordinance number 2021-12, zoning for property on West 2570, Highway 2570. It's been properly seconded. Please approve by the normal sign of aye.
Mayor, since that's an ordinance.
Okay, we need a roll call. I'm sorry.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderman Bobby Knight.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Yes.
Motion carries. And item C is consideration of resolution number 2021-13, street closure and quitclaim on Sanford Street.
This resolution is very similar to one we did last month for Mr. Knight, where he owns all the property on either side of the right-of-way. This gentleman, Mr. Hans, is requesting the closure of, it's an unimproved right-of-way that goes right through the middle of his property, almost bisects it. And he's asking to close it. I've asked Chief Schultz, and he did, and he went and checked it out, didn't have any issue with it. The Chief Shelton did the same thing, and Mr. Hicks did the same thing. It doesn't affect any of our public safety or street and sanitation. So staff would recommend the approval of the resolution, and then we will allow Mr. Hurst to prepare the quitclaim paperwork.
All right, deferred to resolution. Is that read into the record?
No, you just need
Okay.
the motion.
All right, we need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion we approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we do, excuse me, have a motion to approve resolution number 2021-13, for street closure and quitclaim on Sanford Street. It's been properly seconded. Please signify your acceptance by the normal sign of aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Item D is consideration of authorization of Newport Utilities to renew a letter of credit from Commercial Bank.
This is the same request that we have yearly for our USDA letter of credit. I'm trying to get us, once again, this is NU funds. We have to get approval through City Council to renew this letter of credit. It's up in February. We've paid off a good portion of this loan, I would say probably around a quarter of it. So I'm trying to get that reduced to $750 instead of the $1 million that we've done in the past. If I'm not able to do that, I wish we could. What I'm asking for is an amount not to exceed that $1 million. And if I'm able to get it, get documentation from USDA allowing us to lower that letter of credit, that'll free up funds for us, because of course this will be through a CD with Newport Utilities, and it's basically restricted cash at that time. So obviously if we can reduce it, that'll free up funds to use elsewhere. So do we have any questions, or I can read this how we need it worded in the minutes if that's appropriate.
Sure, go ahead.
Due to things we have to have on file at the bank and all the I's dotted and T's crossed and these kind of things. I'm sure you're aware of how that works. Newport Utilities respectfully request the Newport City Council to authorize NUB to renew a letter of credit from Commercial Bank in an amount not to exceed $1 million, secured by certificate of deposit, with the beneficiary of the letter of credit being the USDA. Newport Utilities General Manager Michael Williford will sign on behalf of Newport Utilities for this letter of credit.
Okay, you heard the presentation. It's the board's pleasure.
I make a motion we accept that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the board then to approve the consideration of Newport Utilities to renew a letter of credit with Commercial Bank. It's been properly seconded. Please signify your approval by a normal sign of aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign.
Johnny, appreciate the job y'all are doing too.
Appreciate you. And we'll be back sometime between now and next February to do it. So we appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And item E is consideration of amending the Newport Police Department General Orders.
Mr. Mayor, that is basically just housekeeping that makes our general order parallel the ordinance y'all just passed on abandoned or forgiven property. So that it just brings our general order into line with the new city ordinance, and Mr. Hurst reviewed that wording and approved it as it's presented to you all.
Okay. That's correct. Okay. What's the board's pleasure?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the consideration of amending the Newport Police Department General Orders. It has been properly seconded. Please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief. Bids and purchases and expenses. Consideration of bids for a mini pumper truck for the Newport Fire Department.
So this is another big project that I've been working on for this year too, getting stuff ready. So we are asking the board to replace our 1981 mini pumper that we have, and to replace it with a Rosenbauer mini pumper. That'll be a 4-door truck that'll pump 1,250 gallons a minute, and we'll be able to seat, like I said, it'll be able to seat 4 people. I've been working on this, getting things ready. Rosenbauer, this will be a Sourcewell bid, so that's a organization that we're a part of, and Rosenbauer America is that we don't have to go through the bidding process. And since I've been working on this, there's several increases. It's crazy, and at the end of this year, there's going to be another increase on buying the vehicles and things. So this vehicle will still be nearly a year out if we approve it tonight to get it started, and we'll be asking for $265,427 for the vehicle.
And this was budgeted.
And it was budgeted. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
James.
yes, sir. This was budgeted in this year's budget.
Okay. Board's pleasure, please.
Motion to approve.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion on the board then to approve the bids for a mini pumper truck for the Newport Fire Department in the amount of, we said $265,427.
Yes, sir.
It's been properly seconded. Please signify your approval. Well, I think we need a roll call on this one.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderman Bobby Knight.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for working on it, Jeremy.
Item 11 is comments from citizens. Anyone wish to be heard, you have 5 minutes.
I just want to thank Sarah for helping me start the video Sunday, because I was having trouble with it, and her motherly instinct kicked in, so I'm just calm down. Because I was honestly ready to give up. Thanks, sir, for being good.
One asked me, Rocky, I thought I was your assistant.
State your name, please.
My name is Katie Gilbert.
Okay, Ms. Gilbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of my husband, Justin Gilbert. Justin served for 20 years for the Newport Fire Department until he resigned under duress on September 17th after being given an ultimatum of termination by Jeremy Shelton. Justin is currently undergoing treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder and alcohol addiction with the Fortitude Program for First Responders in Columbus, Ohio. He will successfully complete this program on Thursday and return home to begin outpatient therapy. I am here tonight on his behalf to request reinstatement of his job at his previous seniority and rank as captain. I have attached a letter from Justin requesting this reinstatement. I have a packet to give to you after this. I will provide information proving the Newport Fire Department failed to comply with state law to prevent and treat PTSD that was caused by his career as a firefighter. I have documentation proving 5 infractions of the Newport Fire Department to comply with city policy, ultimately leading to my husband's termination, but will only highlight a few tonight due to time. In June of 2021, Justin informed Jeremy Shelton and Missy Masoner that he had been drinking since a tragic call he responded to in December of 2020, and he had arranged to go to rehab for his drinking. From June to September of 2021, Justin asked Mr. Shelton and Ms. Masoner for help on 2 occasions for his addiction. I also personally asked them for help. I have documentation to prove Justin's PTSD symptoms have been ongoing since the transition to the emergency medical response in 2013 and were exacerbated by the tragic accident in December of 2020. PTSD impacts 1 in 3 firefighters. The state of Tennessee recognized the staggering statistics and enacted the Public Safety Behavioral Health Act in 2017. The city of Newport is required to provide not less than 10 visits with a mental health service provider for the purpose of treating PTSD. Justin first went to Mr. Shelton and Ms. Masoner in June of 2021, admitting he had been drinking since a wreck he responded to in December of 2020. While in rehab, he was diagnosed with PTSD due to trauma related to his career. Why was follow-up to include at least 10 visits not provided for him after his return from rehab? The city is also to establish, in conjunction with a professional counselor who specializes in trauma, support programs in an effort to mitigate behavioral health issues within the public safety employee community. I request for Ms. Masoner and Mr. Shelton to inform the public of the name of the mental health service provider who specializes in trauma with whom the city works. Also, please inform us of the support programs that have been established for the firefighters in the city of Newport. I also encourage you all to speak with your firefighters to see what programs are in place for their protection. The city is also to maintain and provide at least yearly a list of mental health service providers who are qualified. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Who are qualified to provide counseling specific for trauma to the firefighters. I would like a list of these people. Also, according to the policy 4-601, requires an alcohol test to be formed where there is reasonable suspicion. This is elaborating on the policies that have been infractioned. Mr. Shelton noted in the termination letter that he gave my husband that Justin had admitted to drinking while on duty on the night of September 12th, although Justin adamantly denied this. Why did Mr. Shelton and Ms. Masoner not follow policy that night that requires alcohol testing for an employee where there is reasonable suspicion? If they had any question of alcohol consumption, then confirmation could have been following policy. Instead, Mr. Shelton chose to add a libelous accusation to Justin's termination letter that would be presented to City Council upon termination. In the packet I will provide for you, I have a letter written by Justin's sponsor, Josh Gerber, who was present at the meeting when we discussed this. In the letter, he confirms how this was misrepresented. Finally, on September 16th, Justin was given a letter of termination by Jeremy Shelton, given the option to resign or be terminated. This letter was not an accurate portrayal of the incidents that had occurred over the previous months, and specifically on the night of September 12th. I contacted Ms. Masoner on September 17th to discuss contesting the termination. She reported if contested, then it would go in the newspaper and be presented to City Council in a public meeting per city charter. Justin was leaving for treatment the very next day and would not be present to speak for himself. I requested to speak on his behalf and was told that there was no guarantee that I would be able to speak. The decision would be left to City Council. We risked a final decision to uphold his termination being made without you hearing Justin's side of the story. We were given a deadline of 5 p.m. that same day to decide or she would proceed with the termination. Justin and I made the decision for him to resign to prevent public humiliation if I was not able to speak. Policy 4-712 states we could have filed a grievance to the city administrator if we felt Justin was being treated unfairly by the department director, which we did. Why would Ms. Masoner not have directed me to follow the city policy to allow due process for Justin by filing a grievance? Ladies and gentlemen, my husband knew he was a sick man. He was just too overcome by his PTSD and addiction to help himself. He reached out to Ms. Masoner and Mr. Shelton in desperation on 2 occasions, pleading for help for an illness that ravaged his mind. His initial attempt at rehab was fruitless because the underlying PTSD was never treated. He told this to Missy Masoner. Mr. Fincham, I question, did she relay this to you upon his return to duty recommendations that you completed for him?
Ms. Gilbert, you've exceeded your time limit, but are you about finished?
Yes, sir, I am. I appreciate that. Justin has been diagnosed on 3 separate occasions over the last 6 months with PTSD related to his career. It wasn't until I reached out to the International Association of Firefighters that I was provided with the resources to help Justin. They arranged his treatment in the program that he is in today. I sent my husband to work for 20 years with the false sense of security that the Newport Fire Department was doing everything in their power to protect him from danger. I did not realize the devastating statistics of PTSD in firefighters until they had completely changed my life. What are you doing to protect your employees from mental harm? What are you doing to prevent the same fate in other firefighters in the department? Did the Newport Fire Department fail to recognize this debilitating illness due to looking through a lens and seeing a man of hostility and unbecoming behavior as noted in his termination letter? Or could the outcome of my husband's illness and employment have been different if he was seen through a lens as a man exhibiting almost every symptom of PTSD and broken by a career he has dedicated his life to? Did the Newport Fire Department do everything within state law and city policy to give a loyal 20-year employee every opportunity to successfully overcome this illness? Was my husband at risk of losing his job prior to the call he responded to in December of 2020? If he was, then why did it take 9 months for him to be terminated? If he was not at risk for losing his job in December of 2020, then do we not have causation that PTSD and the subsequent alcohol addiction led to the end of a 20-year career? As my husband was drowning in his illness, he was begging for someone from his department to throw him a life preserver. Instead, on his own, he has fought with everything he has to reach the surface of survival and is emerging a better man. Tonight, I ask for you to please reinstate his job so he can return to the life he has worked so hard to regain. And I have detailed packets with timelines and supporting documentation that I have for each of you.
Okay. I believe that your stated intent for the board tonight is to have this board reinstate your husband.
Yes, sir.
And I don't think we have the authority to do that. And I'll lift up our legal authority here. And
Yes, Mayor, it's my legal opinion that because he did resign, that this board has no authority whatsoever. And any attempt even to rehire him would not have any effect.
Who would have the legal authority for that?
Because he's resigned.
But he resigned under duress. He did not want to resign.
That's a legal argument that ultimately a judge may have to rule on, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I have documentation I'd like to give to you all.
okay.
Okay?
I don't think so. I will ask. Any other citizens that wish to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Wilmond. I'm a fairly new resident of the area. I moved into the tiny house community out on 850 Industrial Road. Of course, we all frequent, and eventually in that area there'll be probably 140 to 200 possible residents. And I come into town often, as we all do in the community, and I've noticed the street, and I've checked this out, and it's a city street. It's Cop Boulevard, the street between the utilities and Marathon that goes down to the 45-degree Cope. Excuse me. Yeah, and I'm requesting that the lines be painted. It's quite dangerous, actually, especially at night, and especially when it's raining. There's no way to see where the road ends, and there's quite a few curves in that area, and easily somebody who doesn't know the road well can actually drive right off of it. And so, because the lines, the white and the yellow lines are almost not there. So I'm requesting that you check that out and hopefully, paint those lines so we can safely drive in and out of town.
I believe that that's probably been addressed, at least to the point that we know what the situation is, but we have a situation where, along with everything else, we've been unable to acquire paint.
White paint. We have yellow paint.
Yellow paint.
We can look at maybe trying to get the yellow line that goes down the edge of the road. We could possibly get that done. But white paint, there is a shortage of, as the mayor spoke, everything. And we have been searching with every company that provides white latex paint. And we've got just a small amount of paint, and we've got a lot of projects that need it, and we're saving it just for the little places here and there where we can make the best use of it. I doubt we wouldn't have enough to do all of Cope Boulevard. And so, hopefully at some point they'll unload some off a container or something to where we can get some white latex paint. The companies that make it have all these contracts that they have to fulfill with the states. And so the states have first dibs on it. And so they have to fulfill those pre-existing contracts with the states. And so the state of Tennessee, the white latex paint that's coming into the state, they get first. And once they get what they're owed, then cities and towns and counties can try to get some. And so for a year now, we've been trying to get latex paint, white. Now there's plenty of yellow because you don't use a lot of yellow. but the white is just not out there. And so we possibly could do the edge, down the edge of the road with yellow, but
That would be great, because then we
but we
wouldn't
don't
drive off the
have-
edge, you know.
but we're falling behind on a lot of the striping, because we just don't have the resources to do it. It's just, there's just no paint to be had. I mean, and well, if you can find anything, it's like everything, it's much higher.
Right.
Because so much latex went into making latex gloves. You don't think about, but the paint that goes on the roads has that same chemical compound in it that's used to make, latex paint, latex gloves. And so they've diverted so much of that latex into making gloves for the medical profession during the pandemic that even the companies that make latex paint are struggling to get latex to make latex paint. So it's the food chain, supply chain thing. But we will do whatever we can to try to make it better.
Yeah, that yellow paint would be great, because honestly, because there's a lot of new people, like I said, coming in, in that community, and we don't know the road, and at night, especially when it rains,
I
there's
agree
just...
with you 100%. I've been down that road.
Yeah,
It's hard to see.
there's nothing to guide, and it's the paint lines that guide you, and there's, two really nice curves that easily people can just run right off the road because they don't see.
We'll see what we can do with the yellow.
And I have a suggestion then, too. I know on some streets and roadways, they have those reflector lights, and I don't know if maybe you could check out putting reflector lights in.
Yeah, we don't do those in the city. We don't have the machinery in the state. You have to have a special machine to do that, and that's not something we do. The state does that on state highways, but on city streets, you don't generally have those on city streets, and we don't have the equipment to do that. You have to have a specialized machine to put those down.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for...
But yeah, I think that would be a solution, and that may be something we have to look at some point, maybe, to see what it would cost to have the resources to do it.
Especially since that road is going to be used by a lot of residents. Because, that road usually is just industrial during the day where people go to work. But now that there's a whole residential area out there off of Industrial Road, like I say, 140 to maybe 200 residents.
Well, there's a lot of changes coming down there in the coming couple of years, because the new bypass, so they began work on that in January, and that is going to cross that area at the sewage treatment plant. And there's going to be on-ramps and off-ramps that the state's going to be putting in there, and that's going to be a much different looking roadway within the next 2 years. So perhaps we could get the state to address that for us when they put those ramps in.
Okay. All right. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, one thing I want to make clear as much as I can on one issue that Ms. Gilbert talked about. At no time do we ever tell any citizen that they can't come to city council and be heard. What we tell citizens is that we can't just put them on the agenda, because lots of people call and they say, hey, I want to be put on the agenda, and that happens routinely. And so what we tell them is, look, we don't put you on the agenda because you want to speak. We have a designated time, as you all know, at the end of the meeting, every meeting, where any citizen can get up and be heard. So we never tell anybody that they cannot come and be heard. What we tell them is that we don't put them on the agenda, that only city council can put them on the agenda. And if they come to be heard and the council decides that they want to put that on the agenda for the next month, then we put that on the agenda. But we never deny anybody, any citizen, anybody, the right to come and address the council and be heard.
And I'd like to say something to that, please. And mainly I have a question. And you'll find this in your packet, but through this process, since September, I have reached out to multiple people. Like I said, Ms. Mason, I was not given the option. I was not going to be guaranteed the option, I should say, of speaking on my husband's behalf, and he was in no condition to do that. I spoke with Willie Green to see about civil service, because I have been referred to civil service. who do I speak to? If my husband's voice has not been heard because policies were violated, then he did not want to resign from his job. He was forced to resign from his job. Who do you go to file a complaint and to have your voice heard if this is not the place that you go? This is where I have been told by 2 different people to come. Where is the next step? Does he just...
The next step would be a court action, ma'am. And it's my opinion, based on my conversations with personnel and with Jeremy Shelton, that procedures were followed, so.
Well, I encourage you...
If there's a disagreement with that, then you need to file a court action.
I encourage you to read your packet, because I have Josh Gerber here with me tonight, who was present during a meeting that we had with my husband, who has been present during this whole situation. He is my husband's sponsor for his alcohol, who was privy to a conversation where Missy and Jeremy violated several policies, and the termination letter that was given to him that was going to be presented to you all was not factual. It was actually completely misrepresented my husband's illness. It never mentioned his illness. My husband went to them on 2 occasions for his alcohol addiction, and he never mentioned that in the letter of termination. He mentioned one time of him drinking, which did not happen, and they never did an alcohol test per policy to confirm that. But he never showed him being the sick man that he was, and that's what you all were going to see. And if you will please read the packet, I can assure you it will open your eyes to how this was mishandled.
Anything to add?
Counsel, again, I would state that he resigned. If he had been terminated, it would be a different matter.
He was going to be terminated. He was given a letter of termination, and he was not provided the avenues in which to grieve that termination. And the letter of termination is in his packet. So I would appreciate it if you all would read that and give my husband a chance. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does any other citizen wish to be heard? If not, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, everybody didn't seem very anxious to be out here tonight, I guess. Well, anyway, I'd like to wish everyone Merry Christmas this year and a very Happy New Year. And our next meeting is always the second Tuesday of the month, so anyone wishes to be heard can be here at that time.
Next year.
Next year, what did I say?
No, you didn't. I was saying that. Next year. We'll come back next year.